We imagine working alongside other professionals will be a good experience with everyone working towards their mutual success. But publishing, like all professions, contains its share of horror stories. Missed deadlines, vanishing partners, squabbles over money are just a few of the nightmares that can happen. Do you have a publishing horror story to tell around the bar? Our panelists today speak about some of their experiences as we kick off the spooky month here on This Week in Indie. Speaking of horror, we segue into this week's Indie Connection, where the haunting CL canon has 4 books you may like if you're a fan of It by Stephen King. As we wrap up, we will inform you about the amazing shows coming up this week in our Killer Minute. Finally, more excerpts from the panelists are coming your way in the epilogue. So open your book of grievances and get ready to blog. It's time for another frightening episode of This Week in Indies with your host, SM Hillman. Welcome to This Week in Indies. I'm your host, SM Hillman. We opened October, the month of myths, magics, and a little bit of spookiness, where we embrace the dark side of our humanity with the dark side, or where we replace the dark side of our humanity with the dark side of publishing. No, not horror, not the horror stories, or not the horror idioms or genre. You know, I wrote this and I did practice it. So, not the horror idioms or genre, but the horror stories in publishing. I think if you're in the game long enough, you will run into scams and scoundrels and sometimes just incompetence. Today, our panel will talk about their horror stories that they've experienced in publishing. And to start us off, let's introduce Lily. Lily, happy birthday, Lily.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I am Lily Lucchesi. I am USA Today bestselling author of urban fantasy and paranormal mysteries, and I'm also a dark romance author as S.L. Sinclair and a softer, steamy romance author as Samantha Calcott. And I'm also the co-founder and owner and editor at Partners in Crime Book Services. Hi.
Awesome. Thank you for being here, especially on your birthday.
Thank you for having me.
And everybody's favorite, Bob Magoo.
No. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. It's been a little while since I've been on This Week in Indies, but for those who haven't seen me, I'm Bob Magoo. I'm best known as the author of the Jubal County Saga, which is a series about a redneck wizard with a crippling meth addiction.
And he's sort of the great possum father. So yeah. in the works of possum lore, you will find cave paintings of
Accurate.
Juliet, welcome around.
Hello. It's actually been a while since I've been on here as well, but yeah, I am Juliet Rose. I am a multi-genre author, editor, and publisher. You can find me at abovethebraincollective.com, which is our publishing house. We also offer services from formatting to editing, a little bit of everything in between. And I will note that I am a 64 award-winning author, but I'm mentioning that because of the topic that we're talking about today. So I'll leave that there.
Were you were out selling books yesterday, weren't you? Somewhere?
I was, yeah. We did an event here, more local, which was Spooky Art in the Park, and it was a really fun event. Yeah.
Awesome, excellent. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
The other Bobby Nash.
That's right. There's 2 Bobs for the price of 1. Look at that. Hi, I'm Bobby Nash. I write all kinds of stuff, multiple genres and whatnot. I also I have a small self-publishing entity called Bin Books where I do some of my own stuff, but I also do a lot of work for other publishers, and just thrilled to be here.
Awesome. We're thrilled to have you again, Bobby. Thanks so much. And last but not least, Kevin Petaway. Hi, Kevin.
Actually, I was going to say last and least. Yeah, I'm Kevin Petway. I write humorous fantasies. I have written the Misplaced Mercenaries series, and then there's another series that's starting after that in the same world that I am joining forces with 5 other authors. So we have 6 brand new series all taking place in that same world that I created in Mercenaries. Which is exciting and horrifying in its own right. but has been a real blast. And like Bob number 2, I am thrilled to be here. I'm really excited about gearing up for Multiverse.
Awesome. Yep. Multiverse is coming couple of weeks. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Kevin, thanks for being here, and hopefully none of your collaborations with that group of folks turns into any horror stories.
I think it's going to be just fine.
Yeah, probably so. So I want to start off with just sort of to give people an idea of the things that we might be talking about. Just a brief, what are your favorite horror stories in publishing that might have happened to you or even happened to someone you know? Lily, we'll start off with you.
Probably, excuse me, my allergies hate me. One of the funniest horror stories that almost happened to me, the Coven series, when I was originally writing the Coven Princess, I did not have character names at the beginning. I usually don't. Some characters name themselves right away, some don't. For Coven series, it did not. So I had placeholder names. And I was still only 3 years into my career. I was not fully editing yet. And I didn't use find and replace on all of the placeholder names. So it went through my self-edits, my alpha reader, my beta reader, and a first round of edits with my editor. It was only during the formatting, literally a day before it was supposed to be due, that my editor came back to me. She was formatting as well at the time with my publisher, and said, "Who is this person? How did I miss him?" And it was a very famous name because I named the villain after a very famous person. And I'm like, oh my God, that was a lawsuit waiting to happen. And it was a 24 hours between a lawsuit, because I would have been sued. I know I would have been sued, between a lawsuit and catching that.
Oh, wow. What, you don't have to tell us who the person was, but like, why were they famous? They're a celebrity or politician or?
And excuse my language, an asshole author.
Okay, yeah, gotcha. Understandable. Yeah, you probably would have been sued. So.
Oh yeah.
All right, thank you for that, Bob.
Yeah. So when I got my start, I was writing a bunch of steampunk short stories, and I was involved with my college's writing group. And word got around a little bit, and it reached the ears of a publisher who was wanting to start a steampunk imprint. And they reached out and were like, "Hey, the people in the writing group." At no point did they say I was a good writer, but they said that I took critique well. So they felt like, even if I was garbage, they could at least mold me into something. So I just happened to be the right person at the right time. And I was going to be their first author for this steampunk imprint. And they were actually a very well-established press, just an academic press. And spoiler, academic publishing is very different from genre fiction. The first book went okay. And then the second book, I got an email saying, "Hey, it's going to come out next week," which, why am I only getting a week's heads up that my book is coming out? But I was like, "Wait a minute, guys, we haven't done edits yet." Like, "Oh no, we've done the edits." It's like, "No, we haven't." And they looked at, "Oh crap, we haven't done the edits." But it's too late. And they published the second book unedited.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I mean, they were just using, it was CreateSpace at the time, but they were just using CreateSpace, and having gone through this, they absolutely could have just pumped the brakes. It's not like we were doing pre-orders on it. And so, yeah, they end up putting up the third book in the series. And we politely agreed to part ways. I got all my rights back. I told them, y'all can keep selling those books if they ever sell, but as long as I got my rights back, I'm happy. So, yeah, good stuff.
Fun times. Oh, yeah. So you might have to do a whole show on academic press at this point.
It was wild.
I bet. Juliet?
Yeah. So I've talked a lot about kind of this story, but, during kind of COVID, I had 3 different contracts at a time, and all 3 of them fell through for certain reasons. But the real horror story of the one was the one that I signed and was waiting on my book to be published with a publisher. And I'd even checked with other authors that had been with this house, and they're like, "Yeah, it's good." And So apparently something went south in the time that I signed that contract, had my book published. And when it was supposed to come out a year later, the publisher just kind of stopped communicating, not just with me. I actually found a group online of other authors with this publisher, and we were all kind of talking, and it was getting weird because we weren't getting any kind of communication from the publisher. He wasn't meeting deadlines. He wasn't sending, the cover proofs or anything like that. So we weren't getting anything, and existing authors weren't getting royalties. So come to find out, this author had taken off to Portugal and just kind of stopped doing anything. So we had to go to the Authors Guild and get basically legal counsel and come together to get our rights back and to get our stories back. Never did see any money from it. Those that were expecting royalties never got them. And but he's still out there, apparently. He's still a publisher. He's just doing a magazine now and, kind of hiding out in Portugal. But so that was what led me to end up becoming a indie publisher.
That makes a lot of sense, right? That experience would lead you to be like, nope, I'm done, kind of thing.
Yeah, I was done for sure.
Fun fact, I honeymooned in Portugal. So I can say, if you ever want to go hunt them down, it's a gorgeous place to hunt down someone. So.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
That sounds like there's a book plot in there.
It does sound like a book plot.
Yeah, murder mystery.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. Bobby?
Mine is actually going to be not about a publisher, but about just the publishing industry when I was getting started. Because I started back, when dinosaurs, roamed the bookstores, where do-it-yourself wasn't really a thing when I started. You could self-publish, but your books would be like $40, and you had to sell them out of your trunk. So most of my early days was submitting to publishers. And what would have become my first novel, Evil Ways, a publisher liked it. They sent me a contract, and it was the week before DragonCon. And I was like, you know what? There's all kind of authors at DragonCon. I'm going to go ask for some advice. I'm a guest there because I'm doing comics. And I ran into like the worst cases of go away, kid, you bug me. Why should I help? I actually had one say, why should I help you? You're my competition. I received it was just horrible. And I don't see that today. Today I see more openness and people willing to help. But it was nothing. There was nothing. There were two authors, and I won't mention names, but they were very, very rude and just mean. And so I was like, okay. So I went and I signed my contract, and I was very naive and I was new. I didn't know a lot. But a year later, my first novel comes out. So it's exactly a year later. So I get it the week of DragonCon. So I'm at DragonCon that year with my new novel to now have on my table with my comics. So I decide stupidly, naively, to go show these authors, look, my first novel. And it went about how well you expected. The same rude people were rude again. And one of the two told me that, oh, this publisher has a horrible reputation. And I just went on and on and on. I was like, where were you with this information last year? And he goes, it's not my job to help you. And I was like, well, that's true. But it was horrible. And I know these rude guys, both of them forgot about it like 5 minutes after I left their table, primarily because both of them in later years hired me to work for them and didn't remember any of it. And I didn't tell them. But in my head, I knew. But it was very demoralizing to me as a young writer, and it hurt. It stung. It was, especially from people whose work you respected. So, but the lesson learned, because I know that's kind of our thing here, is talking about lessons learned from this. I made a decision at that point that I never wanted to be the guy who makes other people feel like I felt at that moment. I decided at that moment that if anybody ever asked me a question, I would answer it. If they asked for advice, I would give it. Now, sometimes that answer is, I don't know. But I never wanted to be that, to make somebody feel the way I felt walking away from those guys. And granted, and I was it's weird that I had this thought because, you know, I was a nobody in the publishing industry at that time. I'm not much more than that now, but I didn't want it to be, you know, it changed me fundamentally how I approached dealing with people, not only people who are writers and creators and editors and whatnot, but how I approached readers. So I gained a lot that I think helped me as a writer dealing with the public, dealing with readers, dealing with publishers and other creators. So I learned a lot from it. And I have, to this day, I still, 20 some odd years later, I am still, you know, if someone asks a question, I'm happy to give, you know, my opinion or my advice or point them in directions that might help them. So that was kind of the thing that came out of it for me. And I will say, I don't see those kind of attitudes as much these days because we're not all jockeying for the same, submitting to the same publishers like we used to. Yeah. There's a lot of people that are doing it themselves. There's more publishing options. So I do see more people willing to share their knowledge. But back in those days, it was rough.
I bet.
I can attest. Like I tell people that I have two people I consider my mentors, and Bobby is one of them. Because anytime, like I watch what he does, like a creepy stalker, and anytime I have a question, he has always been so quick to answer.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't fishing for that, but thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, it's good. I think it's good when we can now laugh at these experiences. Mm-hmm. I had something not quite the same, but similar at a convention as well, and come out better people for it. Because from my experience too, I was like, you know, I am never going to be that person. So,
yeah, I never want anybody to walk away from. I never want anybody to walk away from my table going, man, that guy's a dick.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I just don't want that. And kind of like what Bob was just saying, I would do the same thing. I would study people who I had great experiences with at conventions. I would study them. I would look at how they do things. Right. What are they doing that makes me feel comfortable talking to them? Yeah. So I learned a lot watching other creators, and, you know, good and bad, you know, go, yeah, I never want to do what that guy's doing. Or right. I don't want to be, you know, why don't I like going up to that guy's table?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Mm-hmm. Kevin?
Yeah. That was really good, Bobby. I appreciated that. I was fortunate to fall in with pretty good people when I started writing. And so not only were they trustworthy as far as I was concerned, but also they were able to steer me away from some situations that I didn't see coming, that I was unaware of. And so a lot of the really kind of horrible missteps that a lot of us fall into, I was able to avoid just by listening to, you know, the other people around me. However, because of that, I did just sort of do a little research on the subject. And Julia, was that Adelaide that you had your experience with?
It was.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a little bit of other details to add to that, if you don't mind. So Adelaide was run by a fellow named Stephen Nikolic, who, the not paying royalties thing. Apparently, he just did that. Didn't pay people their rights. He did not turn rights over back to the authors. He required many authors they paid between $600 and $700 for to get 45 copies of their own book right off the top, which all sounds bad to begin with. But then, like Julia says, things got a little hot here, so he fucked off to Portugal, and insultingly, I felt, opened up a bookstore there. Then in I guess it was 2023, he went to the Authors Guild, which everybody had sort of teamed up on him, and he promised to make everything okay. He was gonna fix it all, and then just continued to ignore the authors, and has fairly recently written his own book about the understanding writing and book publishing, which I
actually did not know that.
Oh my God, the gall of the guy. So that was one of my favorite ones that I looked up and I was going to talk about. And so I wondered when I was reading it if I knew anybody that had been involved with that, and apparently I do. So there you go.
Yeah, that's both interesting and a little frightening that two of you that were involved with that, or in some way touched by that particular incident.
Well, I just researched it, but
right, yeah.
Yeah, and the sad thing about it was when I originally applied to Adelaide, when I sent my message, I actually knew another author with them who was really happy with me. He's a friend of mine, and I was like, cool. And so, he also ended up getting burned, but he got burned after the fact. Like, he still didn't know when I was going to him and saying, hey, this seems really odd. Have you heard about this? He'd be like, no, I haven't had any issues. Shortly after we went to the Authors Guild, I would stop by to see him. He owns a bookstore here in town. Stop by to see him, and he was like, yeah, I haven't been getting my books. I ordered a bunch of books from them, and they haven't sent them. I'm like, yeah, you're probably never going to see those. Sure enough, he now self-published that book. So he pulled it, and then he got his rights back and self-published it. So unfortunately, I did the right things in talking to people and getting that, but that's, really where you have to be careful. And just a shout out to Writer Beware. If you guys don't know about it, know about it. She literally goes and researches small publishers and gets this information.
I'm glad that your friend got their rights back, because apparently that did not happen for everybody.
It didn't. Yeah, we had to go. Like I said, we got the Author Guild and legally got from lawyers, got termination or breach of contract, termination letters from them and sent them to him. And luckily, those of us, I think, that did get our rights back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could probably do a whole show on just trying to get rights back when
I'm sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely. But we'll, Joe, we need to mark that down as a topic. All right, awesome. Before we get into our next topic, I'm going to go ahead and share our comments. A.F. Stewart, Anita, hello. Thank you for saying hi. Bob, because Jorge is not here. Bob breaking the fourth wall for us. Thanks so much, Bob. And wish him happy birthday. Yep. AF, most of my horror publishing stories involve anthologies.
Oh God, so many people have told me that. I run anthologies, and I have one that just got published for charity, one that's published over the summer for charity, and then one coming that I do yearly. And I've had so many people who just joined an anthology with me for the first time telling me, I have so many horrible things and bad contracts. I'm like, I'm so sorry, but I hope I've made you feel better.
Right, exactly. It wasn't me, it was somebody else. Yep. Joe, congrats to Bob for bucking the odds and selling 5,000 books. Yes, congratulations, Joe. Well done. We at GoIndie are very proud of you, sir. It's very true. And Bob's like, GoIndie was a huge part of that. Yep. Well, I mean, I'll let Joe take credit for that, not me.
I gotta tell you, we were at the Fantasy Gather at DragonCon, and Bob and I were sharing a table, and I was just in awe of Bob's selling technique.
Yeah, agreed. No,
the sign does the bulk of the work.
It does.
Yeah.
But oh my goodness, people were just like throwing money in.
at DragonCon on Friday, because I gave away all my signing times in the booth. On Friday, I sold like 4 copies of my books, I think, in the booth. And then Saturday morning, I went and put that sign up, and I ended up almost selling out over the next 2 days without even being in the booth.
What's the sign?
Oh, it's just I got you can see it. Let me turn my camera a little bit. That sign in the back. Redneck
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I just found I just bought some yard signs with that on it. And so I was like, oh, I need something good that I can put in the booth and put in my yard. I got one in my yard. I'm sure the neighbors love it. But yeah, Richard and Ben were telling me, they're like, dude, people would be walking by the booth, they'd see that sign and they'd come in and just like give me.
Clever.
So.
I love it.
Nice. Joe's, I wonder if they're the same author that messed with Lily. Would that be funny?
No. Actually, this wasn't a personal reason I hated this author. Well, it is personal, but I never met them.
Gotcha. Yep. And let's see. Bob, I'm glad most authors these days aren't like that. No, I agree. At least in our circles, right? That most authors aren't like that. I don't know about.
Yeah. I don't run into it like I see a lot of people that are very supportive and very helpful, and
the jerky ones, the asshole ones, don't last very long, or you don't hear about them actually having friends. You'll hear about them selling books, but you won't actually hear people talk about them.
Right.
Yeah. And gossip travels quick. I've literally been on panels with I was at DragCon, I think it was last year. I sat down and an author friend sat down next to me, and they were like, oh yeah, this other person on this panel. It's like, ooh, man, watch out for them. It's like, oh, okay, good to know.
Yep. And Anita saying, yep, but writer, I was about to say biter beware, also biter beware. Writer beware is a terrific resource. It sure is. Yeah, right. We are at a 95 versus 5 ratio right now, in my honest opinion. Yeah, there's some old people hanging on that were real jerks. So
yeah, and I hadn't considered what Bobby said about it, the lack of like there's less competition now. I just kind of always thought like, oh well, the jerks just get weeded out. But now that does make. I'm sure. I mean, that is part of it.
Well,
jerks do get weeded out, but the lack of competition.
I think part of it too is now because some of those guys who fought for, have left those traditional publishers or are doing their own as in addition to, and so they're realizing it's a bigger world. And yeah, I like I said, I don't see it as much. I see a lot more people willing to give advice or at least just answer questions than they used to.
Oh, and also, like Bob was just saying, and Bobby had said, the self-publishing is different, but also these authors who only publish with a publisher, when I was very first starting, I was only like 16, but the way publishers were responding to me and how they made it seem like there was so few spaces for authors. You are not allowed to be an author unless you're all the way up here. No, publishers really do foster that. Like these could be the nicest people, but once you're with publishers for so long, you do start to believe like this is a special secret place and you people aren't allowed, or I'm going to lose my seat. And it's like, no, there's enough pie for everybody.
I am a shiny unicorn. Yes, only the privileged few get to do this. And
yes.
Yeah.
I also wonder too, if I know that, the people who are kind of assholes, that there's a certain sort of narcissistic behavior pattern that goes with that. And you think in a normal situation, that kind of person always thinks that they're the smartest person in the room. Well, when they are in an environment that is composed primarily of writers who all know that they're the smartest person in the room, you have a situation where you're trying to flim-flam people who study the way that people behave with one another, and perhaps, I'm not saying this for sure, but perhaps are more capable of identifying it. And we all gossip like fishwives. So, as soon as one person does sort of identify that, then they're going to tell everybody else. And they, and maybe you take it for, maybe you take it at face value. Maybe you don't. Maybe you just look at it a little closer, or you're listening for somebody else to say something about it. But I feel like that kind of behavior gets drummed out pretty quickly. And Julia and I had a conversation about this very recently, that those people, they flash out and they're gone, and you don't see them anymore. I don't know. It's fascinating though, because it's certainly not true in every profession. In some professions, those people are rewarded and they go straight to the top, but not apparently in this one.
And as big as the publishing industry is, it really is a small industry. where
Oh, yeah.
people, yeah, like was mentioned earlier, gossip. We learn, you hear things, and and I think because the community is now more open and sharing and talking, we're more willing to go, hey, by the way, if somebody says, hey, I'm thinking about talking to this publisher, and it's like, yeah, I dealt with them. Here's what you might, here's my experience.
Yeah.
Whereas you used to not get that. It was like, it was every man for himself,
Yeah.
And I don't see that now. I see more, and not just in the warning off, but in the opposite as well, going, hey, I know you write horror. This publisher who I've worked with is looking for horror authors.
Mhm.
You should go talk to them. So there's more of that as well, where people are helping each and supporting each other that way as well. And I love that about our community. I wish it had been there, way back then, but I love seeing that now.
And so many of us, I think when we got started, were indies too.
Mm-hmm.
And the big publishers and people with them were looking down on us for self-publishing. Even with the small press I started with, everyone looked down on you. So we all know what it's like to be ignored or to be scoffed at. So we're like, we're not doing that to anybody else.
Yeah. Right. Agree. All right. So that's a really good discussion so far. I hate to interrupt it, but let's think it's time for our Indie Connection with CL Cannon.
Hey guys, CL Cannon here from Fiction Atlas Press, bringing you another Indie Connection. And I'd like to start off spooky season with an Indie Connection that is by, someone would say, the king of horror. Of course, I'm talking about It by Stephen King, the one and only. So here are some indie books that you might like if you're a fan of It by Stephen King. The first book I have for you is called Demon King by Eric Henry Vick. Only 3 children survived the terrors of Onega Falls, New York in 1979. Each of them paid a terrible price and had to survive as best they could, wrapped in fantasy, the comfort of amnesia, or the silence of self-imposed isolation. 28 years later, they are drawn together to once again face the town's horrible secrets, the horde of demons infesting Onega Falls. But the strongest of the demons is the one who terrorized them as children. Can they survive another confrontation with the Demon King? The second book I have for you is called Port Luck by Timothy King. Nearly 80 years ago, the town of Port Luck was a thriving community in the wilds of Alaska. That was until a series of unexplained deaths and disappearances forced the townspeople to abandon their home. The town has since been re-inhabited, drawing in new residents and businesses. By all accounts, the town is thriving, until a body is found on the outskirts of town, shattering the illusion of safety and security. Sheriff Johnny Myers is tasked with investigating the grisly scene. What at first appears to be a random animal attack soon reveals itself to be something much more sinister. As the bodies pile up, Johnny digs into the town's tragic past, searching for a way to stop the cycle of violence. In the wake of the ever-growing death toll, Johnny is forced to face the truth. The stories were real, and it's happening again. The third book I have for you is called Beautiful Torments by D.T. Pierce. What price would you pay to escape your torments, when escape itself is a myth? High school life is just a facade for Jacoby. Beneath the routine of classes and teammates lies a haunting secret. A sinister shadow stalks his fractured mind, blurring the line between nightmare and reality. Is this darkness a curse born from grief, or has something ancient and malevolent claimed him as its own? Detective Susan McGrath lives for obsession. Chasing unsolved murders and whispers of a timeless serial killer, she hunts a horror few dare to name. But the deeper she digs, the more the occult truth devours her, isolating her in a maze of lies, blood, and impossible evil. When Jacoby's crumbling sanity collides with Susan's relentless investigation, they're thrust into a supernatural conspiracy far older and darker than either imagined. Together they must confront a force that feeds on fear and madness, a hidden curse that twists reality into torment. If they fail, they won't just become haunted, they'll become the hunted. And the last book I have for you is called Scratch by David Douglas Jr. Mackenzie Falls was a peaceful little town with its ups and downs. It was tormented for a while by the disappearances of random young teens with their bodies never to be found. It all begins again 26 years later, when 4 filmmaking students accidentally awaken a dark, evil entity on a research trip, which has grown angrier after what the town did to him. Scratch the Clown is back, picking up where he left off, killing and sacrificing the innocent souls of his taste. They struggle to find the answers to this dark past that has cursed the very people responsible for his death. They also fight to stay alive and keep their sanity with an evil clown out to maim, then destroy them. Okay, that's all for me this week. I'll see you next week on the Indie Connection. Bye!
Thank you, CL. That was fantastic. It's a great way to start off our October, and with the King. I want to segue into not clowns, but Kevin, I want to talk about red flags that you see as a writer with a publisher. The stuff that a newer writer might, kind of what we've been talking about here the last bit. Red flags that a new writer might look for.
If I were out shopping for a publisher or an editor or an agent or anything like that, the very first thing that I did before I even contacted that person would be to find out who else they've done business with and talk to them. I've had other writers come to me and say, hey, I know you know this person. What do you think about them? I'm always happy to give that information, but the point is that, like we were saying before, we're a community. And if especially if you don't want to talk to somebody and say, hey, I'm going to go back to this person and tell them everything you said, but what do you think about them? Obviously you're not going to do that. Just be circumspect and do your research first. Do your homework and find out. But if you don't have that, things to look for are first, if you're going to a publisher, are they looking for you to give them money? That's not the way it's supposed to go. And if that's the case, that's probably something you should back away from and find somebody else. The other thing that I would do is, and this is something that I've seen firsthand before, not with the publisher that I'm with now, is take that contract and show it to somebody who knows something about writing contracts. Writing contracts are different from other kind of contracts. There's language in there that a typical person is not going to know what it means, and it looks like it means something else than what it does. And for instance, a lot of the big 5 publishers have morality clauses in their contracts, and it's basically, it says if you ever do anything or say anything or are photographed doing anything that we think might affect book sales, we're going to cancel your contract, keep the money, and you're going to have to pay back your advance. And what it really amounts to is if you do or say anything they don't like, or if you're the same person you were when you signed that contract and the political climate in the country changes and suddenly you're on the outs, then they can and they keep your book rights. So there are things like that to look out for, that, and they don't read straightforwardly. And so that would be a big thing I would look for, is reading those contracts. Now, and a lot of people are going to tell you that you can't negotiate the contract with one of the big publishers. And in a lot of cases, that's true. If your book's good enough, they'll negotiate with you. But most of us, when we're going in and we're unknown, we we don't have, great expectations. We're just, sorry, I phrased that awkwardly. We haven't written a great expectations. And maybe we can't negotiate with that publisher. So instead of accepting those terms, you go somewhere else. Go somewhere else where you can negotiate. Ask around, listen to what you hear. Don't assume you know the best, because if we're new, none of us know the best. Just listen to people who are trying to help you.
Awesome. Bobby, what about you? Red flags that new writers can look for.
I learned this the hard way after my first couple of publishing experiences. I go through and do a little research on publishers when I'm talking to other publishers, not just in terms of the stuff that Kevin was just talking about, which is all very important, but I also go look at what does the publisher's social media look like? Are they out there doing things that I don't approve of, or are they saying things that make me go, ugh? Do they do any advertising? Do they do anything to help sell the books? Are they, what kind of publisher are they? Like Kevin said, I talk to other people. If I see, like if you ever go and look at a publisher and they don't have any of their authors listed, for me, that's a red flag. Because there's no way to like check anything. But also know what you want going in. That also means look at the covers on the books that they've done. If you don't like those covers, this might not be the publisher for you, because your cover's probably going to look similar. So you have to kind of go in knowing what you're looking for or what you're willing to give up. Like, oh, I hate those covers, but I can live with it. That kind of thing. So there's a lot of those type of things when it comes to looking and talking with publishers. Now, when you're doing it yourself, a lot of that goes away, because you're in charge of all of those things. But I do like to go in and see what the publishers are like. Are they, spouting hateful stuff online? If so, I don't want to be involved, associated with that. Or the opposite. Are they wonderful people? And you see them being very supportive. Okay, that makes me more inclined to work with them. So I kind of look at those things more now than I did when I started, of what the culture of that publisher is like. Because you're going to be, if they pick up your book and publish your book, you are tied to that publisher for a certain period of time.
Right.
Do you want that? Are these people? Is it a group of people that you wouldn't mind spending time with? And I look at those things, and so sometimes there are red flags in how the publishers or the editors act.
Yeah, I could think of one big publisher in particular that I used to be a big fan of their work, but after some very public stuff went down with them, I no longer have any interest in being associated with them. So as a writer, so even though they published stuff which is stuff I would write. So thank you. I appreciate that. Juliet, red flags that new writers can look at?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things, and we've touched on them already with Bobby, because I was going to say covers as well. Like if you go, if you're looking at a publisher, go to the website and look at, one, their website too. Like, is it looking like something from the 80s? Have they really are they putting money and effort into their own website? Are they putting effort into the covers that they're putting out? That's definitely important. One thing to look at too that hasn't been mentioned yet is look at their publishing schedule. One thing I wish I had done with Adelaide before I did it was to look at how many books they were attempting to publish a year, which was an insane amount. Like when you actually looked at it, you're like, how would you even do that? And it wasn't sustainable. So maybe he pulled it off for a year or so, but he definitely couldn't keep up with the volume of books he was trying to publish every month. And I don't remember what it was, but it was like 10 books a month, which is insane. As a publisher, I can say I do a few a year, to really put time into it. So look at their publishing schedule, talk to the existing authors if you can. years ago, this is back in like 2004, I actually had a children's book that got picked up by a publisher. And right off the bat, I had a weird feeling about him, but like I wasn't sure. So I looked at the books he had published and I found one of the authors and reached out. And the guy was like, don't do it, like run. And I did. I canceled the contract for that. So talking to authors is really important. And then contractually, I mean, if you do get a contract, and so when I talk about having 3 contracts, one of them I never signed. And the reason I didn't sign it, and I did reach out to Writer Beware at the time, because something about the wording just set wrong with me. And I wasn't really sure. I didn't know the legalese, but I was like, something about this sounds wrong. And so I had Victoria at Writer Beware look at it, and she was like, yeah, don't sign that contract. Basically, what they're saying is that they wanted one of my books, and I had a follow-up book with shared character, and I gave them, said, hey, did you have this? And they said, well, basically what it was saying was that they could determine, and they have the right to first rights. So they could look at it first and say, yes, we'd like it, or we don't want it. Typically, if a publisher doesn't want it, then you shop it elsewhere. This one actually forbid it. It said, if we don't want it, basically no one can have it because it has a character that's shared with the book that we want from you. So really having somebody look over contracts is really, really imperative as well.
Wow, I've never heard that before. That's scary. That's just that's awful.
Yeah, that is pretty awful. Thank you for sharing that with us. Bob?
I mean, a lot of this stuff's already been said. I would say that something that I would say now that I probably wouldn't have said maybe this time last year, or at least I know not 2 years ago. Look at how they're using AI. If I'm not going to sit here and tell anyone what their ethics around AI need to be. My ethics are that I will not use AI to do the work of another creative. Like, I'm not going to use AI in any way that would take money out of their pockets. That's my ethics. You do you. So knowing what your ethics are, ask them what their ethics around AI are. If you don't want AI associated with your works, you need to get that nailed down, figure out. And, things change. You may want to look at getting something added into your contract that, hey, just because you're not using AI now, I don't want in 5 years you to change your mind and you're now, using AI and things related to my book. So something to consider is looking at the AI landscape and how that publisher is engaging with it.
I recently had a similar thing where I did a work for hire novel for a publisher, and then the artist they hired did an AI cover, and it immediately, like, I started getting backlash from people. And it's like, look, I wrote this long before the cover artist was ever hired. I'm not the publisher. But it also stops me from being able to take it and sell it at certain events, because some events are like, no, we will not have any of that here. And so, yes, so I never thought that was an issue with this particular publisher who I had worked with before. But now I've had to say, please don't do that anymore.
Yeah. I mean, DragonCon, they have a zero AI policy in the vendor hall. So, yeah, and I don't know. It's definitely something that if it's not on your radar, it needs to be. You need to be doing your due diligence and your research on the publishing landscape in general. Just keeping an eye pointed in that direction at all times, because otherwise you could wind up in a real pickle. And if you don't have any protection in your contract around AI, for all you know, they could take it and license it to Anthropic or ChatGPT or whoever to use your book to train their models. Not that, let's be real, Anthropic's not going to. They're just going to pirate it anyway. But in theory, but yeah. So look at their AI stance.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Lily.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to talk about it, but adding on to that, I also did a work for hire novel, and in the contract it was, we will be providing, you will talk with your editor, which there was a real editor, and we will be providing the cover art. Author doesn't have to do anything for it. Like, okay, that's fine, that's typical. Didn't realize that cover art was going to be AI, and I can't promote it. I can't talk about it because I don't want people thinking that I don't do my own work, and just whatever your opinion on AI is, it doesn't matter. What matters is being forthcoming about it. And so typical contract language no longer applies when it comes to AI because yes, publisher provides cover art. Normal, standard. Sometimes you get say, sometimes you don't. With my previous publisher, I got say. There was no AI. AI wasn't around. But yeah, now you have to, as the author, go in, read that contract, and potentially have them add that AI will not be used in whatever parts. And if you're comfortable with it, say which parts you're comfortable with. Like I said, this is not pro or con. This is for you, the individual, to decide. But another red flag that I want to touch on, let's say you find a publisher that does work for you at the start. Keep up with what they're doing. Don't just blindly trust them at the start. And I don't want to get threats in my inbox, but you will see after you've been with a publisher for a while, especially in indie press, sometimes things change. New people come in. Longtime people that were working behind the scenes start getting lazy on their edits, or the covers don't get done in time, or you don't get to approve your final proof. Or then you find out that there's some things behind the scenes that you don't like. You need to keep on top of things, especially like my contracts were for 3 years. When you get a renewal, go through that contract again. Don't assume it's the same. If you see anything you're uncomfortable with, if timelines start to change, if communication starts to lessen, someone who may not have been a red flag at the start can slowly go from green to yellow to orange to red. You don't want to wait for it to get to red. I waited for it to get to red. I was not pleased. And things have been smoothed over. Everything's been talked over. I'm not dissing anybody. That's why I'm not naming anybody. Everything's been smoothed over now. But there were things that were going on that I should have stopped or put a stop to and gotten my rights back sooner than I did. So for anyone who is with someone or going to sign with someone, just keep on top of things. Don't sit there and think, well, this is a green flag now. It's going to be green forever. No, everything changes, whether it's a big five, a small press, or even just an editor or cover designer you're working with as a self-publisher. I've had clients come to me for editing where they go, I was with the same editor for 5-6 years and suddenly the quality changed. Because yeah, sometimes that happens. So don't be afraid to tackle red flags later. Don't be afraid to confront a formerly green flag because that is going to save you so much grief on down the road. Don't be complacent and don't be nice. Be polite, but don't be nice, because being nice and being too trusting and that doesn't help. That doesn't help when you're facing business decisions. And sometimes in publishing, we want to be nice because we want to be friends with people. We don't want to be like the people Bobby was talking about. But when it comes to protecting yourself, there's a whole different level of, okay, I got to be the asshole right now.
Right.
Lily, do you have any counsel on, particularly for new people, on how to trust their instincts as far as what is a potential red flag, something that is really easy to see later on in your career, but when you first encounter it, maybe you don't recognize it, or you think maybe something's wrong, but it's probably you? Or how would you advise people to make that call?
When you see something, especially if you're new and you don't understand it, it could even be a good thing. It could be a green flag, but if you don't understand it, ask. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to talk to different people. Like I should have asked, one of the things I should have asked, and I just talked about this yesterday, in fact, when I was starting, was about newsletters, about advertising budgets. I did not do that. That was my biggest mistake because I didn't learn things when I should have been learning them brand new. And I feel like I lost a lot of opportunity for not asking enough questions. And sometimes you don't know what to ask. So the first thing I would ask a prospective publisher, because those usually aren't in the contracts, what is your advertising budget? What does it look like for this imprint, for my genre? What is the plan? Where are you going to be doing ads? Do you run BookBub? How do you handle sales? Like limited time sales, like Black Friday, things like that. How do you handle getting the author copies? What sort of events do you do as a publisher? Do you set up events yourself? Do you go to them selling the books? If that happens, how do I get the royalties from that? Because again, contracts sometimes don't state that. So anything that you have to ask, especially about money and especially about your rights, ask. About advertising, ask. About promotion, self-promotion. Are there book trailers? How much input do I get on my cover? Again, some publishers, they will not let you have any input, which unfortunately that's becoming very standard. If you want that input and you want that in the contract, but they won't let you talk to the cover artist, that's also a bit of a red flag. Like, why? Why do I have absolutely nothing? Why can't I even approve this thing or ask for a change? So just be very inquisitive and be kind of nosy, be annoying. Because if you're working with a good publisher, a good designer, a good editor, they are not going to care if you are nosy and annoying because they have nothing to hide.
Right. So your advice is really almost more than actually, I mean, obviously be looking for red flags, but just ask questions for anything you don't know about.
Right. The more questions you ask, the more red flags are going to pop up.
Mhm.
Because they want to hide these things. They don't want you asking questions.
I think trusting your gut helps too, because if you have a bad feeling, if you don't say anything, that bad feeling's not going to go away, which is going to make your experience not great. Because
and if you're someone like me and you have a lot of anxiety and you don't trust your bad instincts, when it comes to working with someone, again, trust those. There are certain things to look for, but there are also so many things that are hidden. And those hidden things are just things that people who are brand new aren't going to know about. But again, like Bobby, you had said before, look at the website. Juliet mentioned too, it does a place from the 80s. How are things run on social media? How are they with events? How are they with working with other authors? How are they with getting you into promotions like BookFunnel? Again, things like that. If they're a smaller press, of course, and we're not talking Big Five here. But you have to ask. And again, there are some small presses. I'm an acquisitions editor for the anthologies for Fractured Mind Publishing. It is a one-man show other than that, and he hires out for cover art. I've actually hired out to the same artist before, not for Never Again, but others. And you have to know this is a very small operation. This is not a big budget thing. This is not going to have those ads. And those things are usually talked about, but you can't go in expecting things that a publisher also can't give. You need to know and you need to look and study. And there are so many wonderful groups out there on Facebook who will tell you a bit more about what you want. Is this a career thing? Is this a hobby thing? Is it somewhere in the middle? What best serves your needs? Once you take time to know what your needs are, you're going to be able to go to a publisher and look into it and spot red flags much quicker, because what's a red flag for you in some cases might actually not be for someone else. It might be, waving a little bit yellow, a little bit in the middle there. So you just ask. Again, be nosy. The nosier you are, whether it's about yourself to other people, asking for advice, asking the publisher, the better off you're going to be in the end. And this is definitely a PSA from someone who wishes they were nosier.
In my day job, I work with a lot of contractors, and kind of our standard mantra is the best it's going to be is as you're signing the contract. The relationship is never going to get better than the wooing that they have done to get you to sign the contract. And so it's the same thing here. Like they can, if you've got a bad feeling as you're going into signing the contract, the relationship's not going to get better.
Right.
I mean, maybe in a fluke occurrence it might, but by and large, if you're not happy when you're signing, you're not going to be happy on down the road.
Yeah.
So
look for love bombing. It's like relationship. Look for that love bombing. What are they trying to do to woo you? And have they done that for others? Because if they're promising it to you, but other people haven't gotten it, that's an issue. Thankfully, I have not dealt with that, but I've heard of other people who have. And you need to. And again, another red flag in the contracts, which you guys mentioned about characters being used. If they want the rights to your characters and you can never use them again until you break that contract or unless you pay them, that is a red flag. And even if some people say, oh, it's industry standard, that is not a standard we should be upholding.
Right.
There's also a lot. It took me a while to learn this, but there is a lot of we have a lot of power. And especially when you're new, oh my God, somebody's interested in my book. That's all we're thinking about. oh my God, I'm going to get published. I've learned in the intervening years that I can walk away from contracts, or I can walk away from offers to publish my book, and it's not the end of the world. Having worked with publishers that were awful, I kind of wish I had learned that sooner. To, yes, I had a book, but was the headache worth the book? So
Yeah.
there are more options open to us today to have that freedom to go, I appreciate the offer, but this is not a good fit for me, and go off before you sign that contract and live that unhappy life. You know?
So I've got a quick follow-up, something that Juliet had said about, trying to publish too many. Is it a red flag if they're like publishing one book a year? The publisher, like they have several authors, but they're really only doing one a year. Is that a red flag, or is that not something you'd worry about?
I think it depends on genre, market, and size of the publisher and their past output. Like if they have 5 authors, ideally they should be putting out at least 2 to 3 books a year. I mean, let's say some of the authors take a year plus to write a book. If people are still doing that, I think some people still are. But in this publishing climate, I would be very concerned with how those books are performing if it was such a low output. I think too many is definitely a red flag, like 110%. But if it's only 1 or 2, look at how many authors are on the roster. Look at how well the books are doing. Look at how happy those authors are. Again, go and talk to those authors. You see them on the list, go and send them some emails, Facebook messages, whatever. Because that'll let you know, is it laziness? Is it that the publisher doesn't have any money to put those books out? Or is it just, well, our authors take forever? And that's fine if that's the case.
If that one book that they put out last year has 10,000 reviews on it, then yeah,
Right.
I would be okay. They're clearly sinking a lot of time into marketing this book. But if that one book has 3 reviews, like, well, what are they spending their time doing? Because it's not marketing.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And you kind of go in going, okay, if they pick up my book, how long, if it's going to be 3 years before it comes out, am I okay with that?
Right. Gotcha. Something else too, is it a red flag if they want you to commit, like committing for 3 book, a trilogy, I guess is fine, but if they want you to commit like for several trilogies, things like that, right off the bat, is that a red flag? If they're trying to tie you down for the next half decade, is that a red flag, or is that something that wouldn't bother you necessarily?
It depends on what you mean by tying you down. If I can only work for you on these multiple trilogies, that's a problem.
Yeah.
If you're wanting to say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and sign you to do 9 books, great, I'll do those 9 books, but I'm still doing this other stuff.
Right.
I don't want to. If you're going to tie me to an exclusive contract to you, there better be some insurance involved, and I mean, there are things that need to come with me being exclusive, and most publishers aren't doing that.
Right. When I was first contracted, I was contracted for the first 3 books in my series with the option for expansion. And they did say, if you are going to submit, can you submit to us first? If you're writing within that same genre. Like if I was switching, at the time I was not, but let's say I was going to switch to a sweet romance instead of urban fantasy. That was not to them, but it was optioned where that the series will stay with us for the duration of this contract. And then I did renew, and I wound up publishing 8 books in the series, spinoffs, things like that. But if they want you exclusively and you can't go anywhere else, I would be scared.
Okay.
The other thing I would be concerned about is just the way that contract read. If they offered like some kind of buyout where you would pay them some amount of money to get out of that contract, that's definitely a bad sign. That shows that there's the possibility that they know that they're not going to give you what you want, and but if you want out, you're going to have to pay for it. My publisher actually, they want to know that you're working on the books that you have promised to them, as you should. But beyond that, they have no problem at all with you going out and shopping around to other publishers or, doing it yourself. And the reason why is because they know that if you go to somewhere else and you catch a slightly different audience and your book hits, your back catalog is going to become more valuable. And so they're going to be making more money. So it's not even a bad thing for a publisher to do that, to encourage you to go to other places. Yeah, I would personally be a little bit circumspect about that 9-book contract. I mean, I'm okay signing even a 5-book contract. But I want to know what your math is on that, trying to tie me down for that much longer. Because, maybe there's nothing wrong with it. Maybe you just think this is a match made in heaven and everything's going to be great and we'll be set for life and everybody will be happy. But maybe that's not it. And there's too many. I guess I'm just distrustful is really what it comes down to. I want to know what the motivation is.
I think this could be a moment where maybe you're the red flag, not you, Kevin. But
you're right.
The person committing is, if they're trying to sign you to a 9-book deal and you've only written 1 book, maybe pump the brakes and see, or is this something that you can actually do? Like, be real with yourself. Like if it took you 5 years to write that first book and they want 9 books over the next 12 years, is that, for someone like Bobby, oh yeah, he can commit to a 9-book series and know that he can write 9 books, but if you have only written 1 book, maybe you don't dive headfirst into signing a 9-book deal until you're a little more confident and know that you're not going to crumple under that pressure.
Of course, we've all met those authors those writers at conventions that come up who are telling you about their 12-book massive epic fantasy series that they have just started writing.
Took them an hour and a half to write.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're almost done with chapter 1.
Yeah.
And but let me tell you about book 12.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there are people that go in thinking that's how it works.
Yeah.
I honestly thought that my publisher was going to be like, because it was 3 books, and I'm like, okay, it's going to be 5. Okay, great, 5. Okay, here's a spinoff. But great, here's another spinoff. Do you want it? And then I'm like, there's a problem with the series. I think I want there to be more books. Are you willing to extend that contract? Yes. Because I was doing well. I shouldn't have extended then, but like, I'm the opposite of those people with that massive 12-book series. I'm done with it. Crap, more books.
Juliet, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that, there's a lot of variables that come into something like that. You have to look again at the publisher. Are they pretty established? Have they done this already, successfully put out, a large series of books? I like what is their motivation? I think that in something like that, it is worthy to try to, ask for an addendum to the contract, so that you're saying maybe let's start with 3 and then we'll go from there. And if 3 are successfully done, then we can, do 3 more and 3 more. But I think, and that also shows you their ability to be flexible or really work with you as an author. So I think that if you're presented with something like that, it's not necessarily a red flag, but it is something you should pay attention to and see if, I agree with Bob. Is this something you think you can even do? I would never sign on for 9 books. I'll just say that because that's insane. I think that say, let's do this in increments. I'm definitely down, but let's start with a contract for 3 and let's revisit that contract after the 3. Let me see if I'm happy. Let's see if you're happy. Let's see if it's doable and go from there.
Plus also, how often do they want books?
Right.
Do they
9
want
books
you to,
in
do
the
they
month.
want you to do 9 books back to back to back to back
Right.
to back? Or is it, we want 1 a year? So you can kind of gauge what, because not everybody writes full time. A lot of people who are writers have full-time jobs. We have other stuff going on, family, and et cetera, et cetera. And so we have to know what we can do. If somebody comes up and says, I need this story with this many words by this date, we kind of have to know, yeah, I can do that. Or, I had to say no to projects because I can't meet your deadline.
Yeah. And what
So-
happens if you hate what they did? I mean, you
Yeah.
get the 3 books, and you're like, I hate the covers, I hate the editor,
No.
and then you're stuck to do 6 more books with them. That would be
Yeah.
misery.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all for a very good discussion. Very thorough, I think. There's still more gold to be mined here, I think, but absolutely appreciate the conversation. I'm going to go through comments real quick. Weird recommendation for fans of It, The Sign of the Seven by Nora Roberts. Romance, yes, but creepy. Okay. Creepy romance. There we go.
Look, it's good.
Port Luck, Alaska is a creepy place. Have you been there or?
No, I just watched a Discovery Channel documentary on it.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Research.
Research. Love those covers. Yeah, I thought the covers were all really good.
Yeah.
These are all good covers. I like, this is me. I like the 80s. I'll skip over it. I mean, I'm not saying that Juliet is wrong. You know, if they're the publisher is it's still in the 80s, that might be a bad thing, but I love the 80s.
There's a difference between retro 80s and just not being like advanced enough technology.
Right.
Just haven't touched your website in 20 years. Yeah.
Right. I'm all for retro though. Yes, retro is really cool.
Tells by Bob, my Lord Savior's Phil Collins, and Bobby. So thanks to 2 Bobs, I can feel it coming in the air tonight.
It's
All
the Bob comedy tour. I'm telling you.
We're doing
Well, you
it.
guys are going to have to get 2 more Bobs and do a barbershop quartet, or call it a barbershop quartet.
I love
Oh
it.
yes, yeah.
I love it.
Mhm.
Okay, so now it's time. I really need to convince Joe to get music for this, but it's time for our Go Indie Minute. Oh, that's wrong. Hold on. It's time for a Go Indie Minute. Yay! All right. So what we have coming up on Monday is a special late night news happening on a Monday. A focus on the multiverse, where Joe will speak with everyone's familiar with, Vanessa Junta. Vanessa is the programming director for Multiverse. And she will be, or they will be talking about, I guess they'll be talking about Multiverse. As you might imagine. On Tuesday, live, all times are at 8 p.m. All times are Eastern time. I think they're all at 8 p.m. But anyway, First Time for Everything, Season 3. Juliet will be speaking with actually one of my favorite people, the Go Givens
So
crew.
excited.
Yeah, I'm so excited for that too. It's going to be fantastic. Let's see. Oh, okay. And then coming up on Wednesday, I believe is Wednesday, Samantha Bryant, who is also a favorite person, The Secret Heir, Trope or Not to Trope. October 8th at 8. So yeah, Trope or Not to Trope with AF Stewart. AF, thank you for continuing to do that. It's going to be really good. And then on Friday, we have Joe and behind the scenes with writer-director Spencer Cohen for The Compatriots. That's going to be pretty exciting. I highly recommend folks check that out. And then Saturday matinee, at 6 p.m., we have Joe and Brian Tan saving a seat for more indie film screenings. So thank you, everyone who contributes to Go Indie Now. We really appreciate it. We're going to have to skip the epilogue for this week, but I want to go ahead and I'm going to throw up the, not gang signs, I promise, the QR code for everybody's book. This is for Lily's book that she was going to read her excerpt from. Oh, I'm sorry, that is not true. This is the Never Again. There we go. All right, I got it right that time. Let's see. Let's for Bob's Bringing Home the Rain. There we go. Hold that for a few seconds. And let's see. Here we go. Hey, you know what? I'm the best producer currently on this show for this show. And there's
You're
Juliet.
doing great, Sean.
I know. There's Juliet's book. Thank you, Juliet, for being here with us today. And that's for hers. And then there we go. Let me grab Bobby real quick. And
it's probably over there.
There we go. Bobby's QR code. You all should go ahead and run out and buy these books immediately. And Kevin, here we go.
Because it's funny.
It is funny. So you should definitely go ahead and buy it. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much. So, Kevin, we're going to start with you and tell folks where they can find you on the web.
So my website is kevinpetway.com. And you can also find me at my publisher's site, which is curseddragonship.com, and then Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Audible, all of the places. It's there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bobby, where can folks find you?
BobbyNash.com is my website for all things me. That's where you can find links to everything. Ben-books.com is my indie press. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the usual places. I also do full cast audio dramas, and you can find links to those on my site. The publisher just put one of them up for free on YouTube called Midnight on the Rising Tide, which is a free full cast audio drama. So if you're into that sort of thing, check it out.
That sounds perfect. Thanks for being here with us today.
My pleasure.
Juliet?
Yeah, so you can find me at abovetheringcollective.com, which is the publisher website, but we also have a shop. And then I also have a free book right now. So my book, By the Dimming Light, is free through tomorrow on Amazon. So if you go there, you can get a free book downloaded. And then in person, I'm going to be at Green Ice Festival in Chickamauga, Georgia on October 18th. Fortunately, I won't make Multiverse this year. I accidentally double booked. I thought there were 2 separate weekends. So yeah, so I won't be at Multiverse, but I love you all and I will miss you. And then on the 25th, I'm going to be at the Crazy Book Lady in Ackworth, Georgia for her parking lot event.
No, we will miss you at Multiverse, but maybe folks can catch you over the Crazy Book Lady, which is a great bookstore.
It is.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Bob?
Yeah, you can see all my stuff at tellsbybob.com. If you like indie RPGs, tabletop RPGs, go check out beardedbardinkworks.com. That's my RPG press. And if you're curious about our games, a number of them have been played here on Go Indie. Go check out Sean's other show, Hit the Dice, and you can see a couple of those games get played. I also do a show here on Go Indie called Page Numbers, where I interview authors and talk about the real numbers behind what it is to be an author. And Oscar just came up here to say hello. So Oscar says hello, everybody. So yeah.
Hello, Oscar. Thanks for being on the show with us today.
I'll get him to sign a release later.
They're classing up the joint.
Yeah. And Lily, where can folks find you?
Okay, so you can find me at lilyluchesi.com. It's right down there. And that's where you can find links to all of my books, including Never Again, and the series that it spins off from, the Paranormal Detective series. If you are an author and looking for an editor or looking even for just some advice, counseling, you can find Partners in Crime Book Services on our website. You can actually message me through my website as well, or on Facebook. We also have a page on there. And I also want to shout out the anthology that Partners in Crime just published called Cold Played. And it is a romance anthology, over 150,000 words by female or female presenting writers about their version of revenge. It is romance, and it goes from living well and living a great life to burning down buildings and mild. So any level of light to dark romance, and all proceeds go to the Chicago Foundation for Women, and that is available on all ebook retailers.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I want to go ahead and thank the folks who in our comments. I want to thank the folks who watched and viewed, and those of you in the future who will be viewing it in the future, because I know you will. Also always thank Joe for in Go Indie Now for bringing us all together. Really appreciate you, Joe. Fall season has been kicked off pretty well. I think folks are going to really enjoy what's coming up on Go Indie this week. We will be next week. Joe will be up with the next topic, but then the week after that, Joe and I will both be at Multiverse, and we'll be having a From Multiverse Live like we've done a couple times. And, maybe you'll see some of the people on this panel on the live go Multiverse. We'll see. We'll never know. I mean, I guess you will know if you watch in a couple of weeks. So, everyone, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it, as always, folks, for watching. And you know what? Hold on. It's always time to go indie now. Thanks, team.